In this video, we will show you how to replace your lower ball joint on this Subaru Impreza. This is part of your front suspension, located behind your front wheel. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. The first thing we need to do is safely raise and support the front of the vehicle so the wheel's off the ground and the suspension is hanging. Once you've done that, we'll continue on to removing all 5 of our 19mm lug nuts and then the wheel. With the wheel out of the way, let's continue on to removing our 32mm axle nut. We'll continue on with a hammer and punch directly in the center of that axle. We want to break that free from the wheel bearing. At this point, we're going to have a look in this area. We have our lower ball joint that comes down and through the control arm. You can separate this one of 2 ways. Either remove the pinch bolt and separate the ball joint from the knuckle, or remove the lower nut here and separate the ball joint from the lower control arm. We're going to move up to the pinch bolt. We'll go ahead and remove this, separate this a little bit, and then we should be able to slide this down and out just enough to break it free. We'll use a 14mm for this pinch bolt. A quick inspection, make sure it is still reusable. This one looks okay. The next thing we'll have to do is start tapping down on this control arm. We're waiting to see this ball joint start to move from the knuckle. For this, you can use a hammer and punch, or if you have an air hammer, go ahead and use that. At this point, we'll continue on by carefully pulling down on the control arm, pulling the ball joint out of the knuckle. Once we've done that, we'll be swinging this away. Make sure you don't put a tug on the axle. To bring this down, we'll just use a hook, come right over the top of that control arm. Nice long pry bar down and under this area, and we'll hook it along the bottom of the control arm. At this point, we can pivot this and move it as needed. Let's pull this away. We'll carefully slide the axle away from this area. Now the next thing we can do is start separating the ball joint from the control arm. To do that, you'll find that you have a locking cotter pin and a 19mm nut. We'll remove these. Start that nut on there, just a couple threads. At this point, we'll separate the ball joint from the control arm. To do this, you can do it several different ways. We're going to use a pickle fork. Come right in between this area and we'll separate it. Let's get ready to install our brand new ball joint. Looking at the ball joint stud, you can see that you have a hole that protrudes straight through it. We want to have that facing forward and rearward. You don't want to have it side to side because it could be a little bit difficult to put in that cotter pin. I'll take this and slide it right down into the control arm. Start on our mounting nut. Snug this, torque it to 30 foot-pounds. Once it's torqued, the next thing you want to do is pay attention to the slots of the mounting nut in comparison to the hole on the stud of the ball joint. We need this to align so we can put the cotter pin through. If it does not align, continue tightening until the very next slot does. Make sure you peen that cotter pin over so there's no way this nut can loosen up on you while you're driving down the road. Before we can install the ball joint in here, we want to make sure that we take that axle and we'll slide it in the back side of the wheel bearing. Just have to work it around a little bit. It should slide right in. Pull down on the control arm and we'll line up that ball joint and slide that into position as well. Now once you drive the ball joint in here, you want to make sure it's completely bottomed out against the knuckle. Now we can put in our pinch bolt. You'll find that I applied a little bit of blue thread locker to this. We'll slide it right on through there, start it in by hand and snug it up. The torque for this is 37 foot-pounds. Now we can reinstall our axle nut. You'll find that I used a little bit of blue thread locker on the threaded area. Go ahead and start this on and snug it up by hand. Never use an air tool for this because you could cause some serious damage to your wheel bearing and you don't want to do that. The next thing we're going to do is torque the axle nut to 162 foot-pounds. As you can see, I use a pry bar coming across the lug studs, being extremely careful not to damage the threaded area. I'll bring this down diagonally all the way to the ground. Now we can torque this to 162, and once we've done so, we'll peen the nut into the slot of the axle. There we are. Now we can reinstall the wheel. We'll start on all 5 of our 19mm lug nuts. Bottom them out, get the wheel back on the ground, and we'll torque these to 100 foot-pounds. With the wheel safely on the ground, we'll torque these in a crisscross manner. Okay friend, we've got our vehicle back together. At this point, take it for a road test, listen for funny noises, and get yourself safely down to your local alignment shop. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.